Everything we're covering this evening is actually, we are making sure that there is online support through the Sporty support side of things as well. So what I'm going to start off by doing is just sharing screen with you all. Yep. Cool. Hopefully everyone can see that. All good, Tristan. Cool. So the starting place for just about everything we're going to cover, I'm going to just point everyone at the Sporty homepage. So to sporty.co.nz. Through here, sitting up the top right, I think skewed by our videos a little bit, is a link through to the support menu item. Just find that for you. And under support, there's online support. I'm actually just going to click on that very first thing just to show you where that takes us to. So to the Sporty Support Centre. So everything we're covering this evening, there will be support articles and video tutorials about just about everything in here. The platform's grown so large over the years that we won't have time to get to every single element of it. What I'm wanting to do is just make sure that everyone's clear on all of the key concepts, any major changes over the last year, and any really new features that have come out over the last year that I think are going to be relevant to you and your use of the platform. In terms of, I know that we do, sorry that this can't be interactive in terms of letting people be unmuted and having Q&A. We've had over 500 organisations register to attend this session. So I realise we've got a whole bunch of different interests within the audience. So please bear with us. We're going to try and get through as much as we can. At the end, we'll also be showing you how you can reach out to us directly for support, either through the support session, or support site rather, or simply by emailing our support team or giving us a call. So for the start of this first session on the websites, e-newsletters and mobile app side of things, I'm just going to go back to the Sporty homepage first of all. Let's top left. Yeah. I think it's already fully loaded in that top left tab, Joe. Yeah. That's there, isn't it? Oh, is that? Oh, okay. That's all good. So if we just scroll down really quickly, probably the key thing that's been made available since this last training session was the fact that this Super CRM member management system now has a starting point of free for all clubs. So our pricing model has changed a little bit. Can we just hold on the pricing model for a moment, Joe? So pricing model has changed slightly since a year ago. Please, if you're not using all of the free services, do come and have a look in here. If you are already on one of our VIP plans, you're welcome to have a look here, and we may also be there may be opportunities for you to now obtain more for whatever your VIP pricing level is. The key bits here in terms of what is available, I'm just focusing on that free forever column on the very left. So that we're going to be covering some of this this evening is the member management side of it, obviously the website and content management system, mobile app, e-newsletters, form builder, and of course the official forms that we provide for the various sports codes. In terms of the website side of things, probably the very first thing I'll do is just have a look at a couple of probably slightly higher profile sites, Joe, that are out there today that I think people will be, just to show examples of where we can go with this. So we just load a couple of reasonably high profile sites and you get a sense for what's now possible. So I think Joe maybe. Possibly the New Zealand football website and Active Southland. And of course, the Sporty homepage itself, our own site is built on the Sporty platform as well. Probably key differences of some of the things that are going on here is the introduction of background videos seems to be becoming more popular. There are other effects in terms of the look and feel of the website, so that simply just about anything is possible. So hopefully all of these sites are built on the Sporty platform. So there's currently about 3,500 websites across New Zealand that are using this same platform. To now show you under the hood, so what we're going to do is we're just going to go to our demonstration website. So it's one that we have prepared earlier, and we will log in and just take you for a quick look under the hood. Reminder to those of you, or a refresher for those of you that haven't used this in a while, or for anyone that's new, as to how this is put together, and then we'll show you how you can extend it in terms of some of the features and look and feel. So the first, in terms of just a reminder that every sports organisation and school in New Zealand does already have a place on the Sporty platform that you can go. If your organisation has not already found it and adopted it, you can go to the Sporty homepage, follow the link through, and go to the directory to find your site. Okay, if there is not a site there for you, there's a button for you to click to create one, and you'll end up with a shell site that lets you get started and be able to do these other things. Most people now, though, most organisations have already started doing something with their Sporty website. So I'm going to assume that you're most probably responsible for, in some way involved with the club website or your organisation website, in which case the starting point for you is simply to log in, and the login is down at the very bottom right of the screen. So if we can move that to the left, yeah. So you'll see an admin login link down the bottom right. If you don't, for anyone that's online that does not have a login and doesn't know how to get one, please come through our support. But when we click the admin login, sorry, Joe.
Yeah, so to contact support is to email support@sportsground.com.
So, and likewise, guys, for anyone that has any questions that are not covered this evening or that you're unable to find in the online support, we'll show you how to make contact through the online support as well. But if you do email support@sportsground.com, it will automatically raise a ticket at our end that Tristan and his support team will answer. So Joe's just going to log in. If you did not have a login, you would be able to create one there as well. Having logged in, so this will be familiar to many of you, but just to cover back over this really quickly, the way the site is built now that we're logged in, we can see these little grid lines that are around content areas, so easy for us to identify the fact that we are logged in. The way these pages are constructed is we use the concept of sections, so the area that Joe is highlighting at the moment, so that area that's in white is within a section. If we scroll down a little bit further, Joe, we can see another section, and if we scroll down a bit further again, there's another section. So the sections are these horizontal bands that run across from one side of the site to the other as a section, and so each page is made up of multiple sections. I'm just going to go back up to the top. So if you can imagine stacking these horizontal sections on top of each other, within each of these sections, you can decide how many columns you want to have within a section. So for every section, there's a little settings cog. Joe's just hovering over it now. And clicking on those section cog, you can decide how many columns you want and how wide you want them to be. So you can say, for example, Joe's just changing the section to be, instead of being 2 columns, she's changing it to 3 column. And we'll see that it's automatically resized the content and introduced a 3rd column across on the right. So if you think about that as a core concept, the fact that you've got these sections that stack on top of one another, and within each section you can decide how many columns you want, you can see how you can create a page with almost any kind of look and feel you want. So you can have a real narrow little section that's just got 3 buttons, for example, or one big text area, etc. Right, so as we go through this, we'll talk a little bit about how we organise content within this open template system. That means you're not stuck to any particular grid or template. within, in terms of within the section, within each of these sections, you can then simply go merely adding content. Simple as clicking the add content button. Clicking the add content will bring up a widget set. Name widgets, many people are now familiar with in relation to website. It just means basically a content block. And here's the widget set that is currently available to you. This is being, we continue extending this based on feedback from people. So you can see a whole bunch of different things that are available to you in here, all the way down from drawers and fixtures from your sports code if they're using Sporty for their account management, through to video, text, images, etc. So we'll just choose a really simple one for the moment. Joe, maybe we'll just add in some text. By clicking the text widget, it now means that into that position, Joe is able to just type whatever text she likes. This is it's introduced an editing ribbon straight above where she's typing, so you can see that she is able to go and do the kind of things that you would normally expect to be able to do when editing text. So she could change the size of fonts, she could change the color, etc. So, and then save that. So this is inline editing, so you're not having to navigate out to some other area, edit your text, and then come back and see what it looks like. The system's what's referred to as WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. And so it just makes it way more easy to design something that fits whatever your needs are. While we're talking about the content blocks, I'm just going to talk a little bit more around the other icons. So within each of these widgets, we've got a couple of different things. We've got a delete trash can. So if we may as well click that, Joe, and it's going to give us the opportunity to delete the content or to keep it. Equally, we've got drag handles, so we could drag that content and go and shift it into a different position, for example. So Joe's just going to go and put that content in above the image and then move the image around. And you'll see that it will automatically snap to the correct position based on however many columns you have. For the whole section settings themselves, which is across there on the top left of the section, we can see there was the settings area that Joe went into when she changed the column. There are a few other things you can do in here as well. We can set a background for this section. So as a, for example, sorry Joe, are you showing colors? Yep. So maybe just click on the colors just for completeness. So we could choose a background. Might be a bit hard to see our text with that particular background, but it illustrates the point. Equally, we could have gone in here and we could have changed, set a background image for a section, in which case it lets us choose one of the images from our gallery, or we could go and click video, in which case we could upload a video as a background section as well. The other thing we can do in the section settings, and I won't stay on this too long, but top right is border margins. So this lets us decide how much space we want around the content blocks, around the widgets, and between sections within the section. So it means we do have complete control over some sites that you might want to have a lot of white space for a sort of a clean look, or you could actually go to very crowded, depending on how active you want your site to look. The other things we can do within those section settings, again, top left, the next one down, sorry, actually while we're there then, I'll just show as well, you could set your section to be full screen width. So if we wanted, we could actually say, click on that, in which case now it pops the 3 columns to go right out to the width of the screen. Now remember, this is relevant to everyone's own unique screen. So some people are going to be looking at your site through a 5K Mac. Some people are going to be looking at your website through an old school VGA monitor. So it doesn't really matter what they're using. It will automatically go to the full width of their screen, their own screen resolution. On that same, within the section settings, but the next one down, as a new feature that was released over the last year, I believe, which is the ability to copy a section. So if you've gone to a lot of trouble to format a section and got all your content just how you like it, and you want to have a copy of that section, You can click the little copy icon and it will create an exact copy of that section for you. You can then edit that to be slightly different or whatever, so it inherits the same settings as your section. And finally, the last one down the very bottom on the left is trash can. So we could actually go and delete this entire section if we wanted, and obviously this applies for any of the other sections further down the page. Of course, the drag handles at the top there mean we could move this section around to be below the section or lower than the next section down. Right, so we're able to drag and drop these into different positions. And so Joe's just moved the next section down to be above this one. Hopefully that gives you an initial sense in terms of the construct of each of the pages, this concept of sections and columns within each page. What we're going to do now is I'm just going to have a real quick run through of some of the more common widgets in terms of content widgets, and then we'll focus on just a couple of them. And with this, we won't have time to cover for every single one of them. So Joe, maybe if we can just go add content. So of these, the ones that you're going to be using most often will be, probably first of all, will be text and images. Online forms, you are able to embed any of the forms. So we'll be talking about creating web forms shortly, or using the official form that comes from governing body for sports organisations to display that within a page of your site. So you can see down through here, there's a whole bunch of different things commonly also used: the button widget, video widget, etc. So maybe Joe, let's use the button widget for a moment, just to give a real life example of this one, and then we'll do the notices widget. So this is simply to add a button into that position on the page. So starting off with whatever the text is, sign up to play. We can then choose the color of the button. Let's make it something bright to make it easy to see. And we can then choose, there's some settings here that are quite subtle, so you can choose whether your button's got rounded corners, if it's just an outline, etc. Whether you want a drop shadow from your button so that the thing looks like it's 3D coming out of the page. But probably more importantly is you can then decide where you want the button to link to. So at the bottom, to make it easy, you could choose a website URL, so a web address from somewhere else. You could choose for it to link to any other page from your site, in which case the system will automatically show you all of the pages currently on your site, so you can link out to one of them. So if you wanted to direct traffic from your homepage, for example, through to your registrations or somewhere else, you could link directly a button to a document. So in which case, so Sporty includes a document library or document repository where you can upload your own documents and keep them securely stored. So you could link a button to a document. You could actually link to an e-newsletter, link to an online form, or you could link a button simply to an email address. So if you're wanting people to email you and wanting that to be really prominent, you could do that here as well. The very bottom little checkbox is where it says open a new window, is just whether or not when someone clicks the button, do you want it to take over their browser screen, or do you want it to actually open a new tab or window for them? Right, so having done all of that, Joe's clicking save to save the button, and we can see here what she's created, a button called sign up to play. Probably also mention up the top there, although we're in this edit mode where we can see that we can modify the content. If we click the view button, that shows us the public view of our site. So of course the grid lines are not there. So we can see the difference between the edit mode and the public view mode. In that public view mode, since Joe's added a button, let's go and click on it. So she had linked it through to a club membership, so a web form. So it's a fairly common use for a button, in which case if someone clicks on the button on the website, it'll take them through to that form. Shortly we'll be talking about how to create web input forms and add your own questions to them. Probably a few other things just to mention in here. You can set your defaults. So although Joe went in and set the styling for her button and styling for text, where she changed Tuesday evening to be an orange, for example, you can go and set the defaults for most of these up through the site settings area. So by clicking on site settings and then going over to the look and feel, you can choose whatever are your defaults. So as for example, the buttons one is here. So this sets your default button settings. So whenever someone creates a button, it will always adopt these by default. You can still change it locally for wherever that button is positioned. But the reason for setting your defaults for these different elements just means that as you have different editors and different people updating the site, it'll keep your site generally looking consistent because everyone's going to be using the same defaults. And there's nothing worse than people just having a stab at what they think the club colours are, or for whatever the font is, etc. This lets you go and set the defaults for all of those main settings, so that anyone editing the site, including yourself, it will always have a consistent theme or look and feel. Anything else up in here for the moment, Joe?
No, just one text is quite common, so you can set default text colours that you might want to use as well, and different fonts. But more just to have a bit of an explore of those there. Yeah,
so hopefully you heard that. Team is simply to have it explored. As Joe pointed out with the text there, over the last year we have also introduced the concept of these different default headings. So now when you're editing text, so in here you can now, there's a heading 1, heading 2, etc. So you can set different sizes. You can set what your hyperlinks look like, etc., and what style they will appear as. If we cancel out of there, Joe, and then when you're clicking, when you're actually editing text, so maybe if we edit that welcome to the workshop, so through here now we're actually able to decide, are we going to be using the heading 1, for example, in which case it'll automatically bring in whatever are our default settings for the heading. So it's brought in that font, that size, and whatever colour was set. Right, so again, makes it very quick to do formatting now with text. Probably other things, the text widget itself has continued being extended, so you are able to embed other content into your text area. Maybe if we just go somewhere in text, yeah, just into the body. I'll let you talk through it, Joe.
Just we have online support in relation to adding media and things into here as well, as to what you might want to add into your text widget.
So you could, for example, paste a YouTube video directly in here. You could paste an image directly into your text area as well. So as an alternative to using the widget set, you can get more out of your text area. Should we cancel that one, Joan? So maybe having talked through how we're updating the page content, I'll just point out a couple of other elements on the page itself. Up the very top, we have a header area. The header is a section just like any other section in a lot of respects. So it also has a settings cog. The only difference with the header section is it's got no drag handles. We can't drag it down because it is there as a header. So the purpose of the header is that whatever you set here will appear on every single page on your site. Whereas of course the content that we're editing down in the main page body is just within that one page that we're working on. So that the header persists right through the entire site. And the same at the very bottom of the site, similar to the header, we have a footer section as well. So whatever you set in the footer section will equally be visible right through the site. So it tends to be used for things like your contact details, maybe a widget there across on the right saying to sign up for newsletters, etc., or to subscribe, commonly found in the footer of sites. All the way back up the top, the other thing that stays the same regardless of which page your people are viewing your site on is the navigation or the menu items. So we've introduced a whole bunch of additional styling to the navigation. In terms of your menu settings, there are a couple of different places in terms of the look and feel. So what I might do first of all maybe is to talk about adding pages. So if you want to add a page, rename a page, etc., as Joe's hovering over this little pencil icon, she can come in here to add a page or reorder her menu. So maybe if we just give it a name, You can also see, just before we save, that there's the ability to decide, is this page going to appear as a top level menu item, so it is a parent page, it's up the top, or did we want it to appear down under one of the other pages? So if we selected somewhere else, we'll leave it to default at the top to make it obvious to us, but you could go and put it somewhere else within your site navigation if you wish. In terms of renaming pages, if we want to change the name of something, so we've got to sign up or registrations, maybe we rename that. So actually, sorry Joe, just hover there for a moment. So the pencil that exists over the top of every page lets you see all of the different things you can do with that page. Okay, so we could move the page into a different position. We could hide the page if we want. If the page is hidden, it means that most commonly it'll be because you're working on the page, you don't want anyone to see it. You might be busily preparing it. A page that is hidden, no one can navigate to, even if they know the URL or know the address of that page. Conceal from the menu, the next one down, means that the page will be concealed from the menu, but if you know the URL to it, so if you know the address of that page, you could still navigate to it. People sometimes use this where you might set a button to go directly to a page, but you don't want the page displaying in your menu for some reason, maybe to declutter your menu or navigation. If an optional feature which is enabled for this site but may not be for yours, as you are able to set some pages to be members only. Next one down, rename, lets you change the name of a page. Maybe we just do that really quickly, Joe, in which case we're editing in line. And save. So we can see it's renamed as Regos. We'll just go back to over that Regos page, Joe, just back to the, yep. Another relatively new thing is having created a page. So if you've formatted a page up, you like the look of it, you want to reuse it for other purposes. Maybe you've set up a page for seniors and you want to use that as a template for a page for juniors. You can now create a full copy of a page as well. So by clicking create copy of a page, it will give you an exact copy and you can then go and edit the content in it. Similar to when you're copying a section earlier. You can also set this menu item to be simply linking somewhere. So if you wanted to, if people click on this Regos page, you want them to actually go out to somewhere else, you can actually create by clicking the link. It lets you say where you want that menu item to go to. So it could be to go through to a online shop, yep, governing bodies website, any other site. Other things we could be doing here, manage URL, a little bit more complex, but if you're publishing a URL in print, for example, you probably want it to be a nice simple name. You can actually go and give it an easy name. So it could be, for example, abcclub.co.nz/register here. Right, so you could actually give a name where you're able to manage the URL and set an alias for that. Again, I won't go into that in detail, it's well covered in our support. Equally, the very last item down there would be that you're able to delete a page as well if you want.
It's only at certain levels.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, if you're on one of the VIP plans. So on the free plan, you'll find that some of these features are not available to you. You need to go to one of those VIP plans that we showed you on the sporty.co.nz homepage.
Just while we're here, I just wanted to point out a couple of things in relation to support. So before we were at our support site here, where you can actually drill down into particular areas and go and have a look in more detail. There was also a search as well. But just one thing, whenever you're logged in on any page that you're logged in, you'll see a little help icon appears in the bottom right-hand corner. So at any time you can actually type help and go and search for, it all brings up suggestions, but you can also search for support articles from here as well. And if you can't find the article that you need or need some more information, you can contact us, and that sends us an email and logs the ticket, and you'll receive an automated reply in relation to that. So any area on the site, there's a couple of ways you can get into the support.
Just right there, I think you can hop over our bridge on the right to try and minimise it all together. Cool. So that's kind of like a super fast overview across the fact, so that we've covered the basic layout of pages, that they're built out of sections, and within each section you can decide how many columns. Into each of those columns you can decide what widgets you want to add to add in the content, and then you can move it around. You can set what you want your header to look like, or you could actually have no header at all and just have the menu set to the top. And we've covered the same with the footer. We've shown, just started talking about the menu items. I'm just going to jump into the menu style. So in terms of the way your menu appears, you can decide if you want your menu items to be center aligned, left or right aligned. You can choose the background color of the menu, which we can see up here. We've added the ability to do other things with your main menu items. So you could, for example, on hover, you could have your page names underlined when people hover over them. You can set them to have a style with square corners, etc. So there's a whole bunch of different styling you can now do. Other key things in here, it's common for people to set their menu to be locked to the top, in which case when someone scrolls on your site, just show you the way that works, maybe from the public view. By having the menu item set to be locked to the top means that as we scroll down through that page, the menu's staying in the top position on the person's browser. Go back in the menu style. There are a couple of other menu options in here as well. So we've got what we call mega menus now. Don't think we brought up any of those sites that you brought up, Joe, to activate. You can have mega menus enabled. That's okay. Oh, yeah, that'll be a good one. The other thing you can do in here is to set your logo. So this is how the logo gets up to the top left of the menu in the background there. You can also decide if you want to link your logo. Most commonly people would link the logo through to their homepage of their website, but you could link it out somewhere else if you wanted. In some cases, people want to put a sponsor's logo up, for example, and do something else. Having set that, so Joe's made a couple of small changes up in there, one of which is that the logo is now across on the left. So what I want to do now is, just conscious of time, we're going to jump through to the dashboard of the site. So clicking on this dashboard link up on the top left of the ribbon up in the black on the top takes us through, so everyone has this sort of central console area. You may find that some of these tiles for you are grayed out because you don't have access to them. Probably the Scared Comp Management tile, for example. But this is the central area. So where we just were up until now was under this tile, the Manage Websites tile. Joe's just going back in there, show us where we were, go back to the dashboard. So we're just going to really quickly shoot through and cover off a couple of these other main areas. So the next tile across that Joe's hovering over is Documents and Media. So each site or place on the Sporty platform comes with comprehensive document storage area. This lets you upload, it could be Excel files, could be PDFs, could be Word documents, pretty well whatever you like, even down to, I think, media files like sound files, etc. You can create your own folder structure in here. Obviously, there are other online places you could store documents like Google Drive and other places, but this just keeps it all within your one organization's site. So as different people come and go, having everything stored here means that those key documents are never lost. It also means that it's very easy for you to then link to them, call on them, put buttons to them, etc. from anywhere on your site. Any of these documents, once they've been uploaded, gets its own unique URL as well, so its own address. So as for example, Joe's just copying a link to one of the documents, and because it's now the document, once it's uploaded from your computer, it's now online, which means that simply by pasting that link, you can let anyone get directly to your document by following that link. So if you think that through, it means you can put that link You could connect it to a button, you could email it out to them in a group email, you could send it in a tweet, you could post it to Facebook, etc. And people are going to be seeing, going directly to your document. Right, so as an area for document storage. Now remember, this is just a storage area. None of these documents are visible to the public unless you expose them by either linking to them or by circulating a link to them. So we'll close out the documents area. Next one, similar to document storage, but this is for images. So for image storage, again, you can create your own folders and put images into folders. You can upload an image from here by simply clicking upload an image, and you'll be able to pull an image straight off your hard drive, in which case it'll go and merely added into that folder. You can set some default settings, so you could set a default link, for example, to show that this image goes through to a sponsor or wherever you like, and do a few other things with it, probably more advanced options in the help. But a new thing that we've introduced recently is this free stock image library as well. We find that often people are stuck for what images they want to use. So we've connected up with Pixabay, which is a fully online. I think they've got 2.5 million images or something that are available for commercial and non-commercial use. So these are royalty free. For example, if we were to put soccer in here, Joe, or rugby or something, probably, oh, it's cool. So it's got some, often it comes up with American sort of gridiron rather than with the word football. But you can see any of these images is now available to you. So you can go select an image, click import, and it will add that image through into your own image repository. So that's now available to you to use anywhere on the site. Okay, so the images tile is your main image repository. You could go and, if you were editing your site and adding content, you could go and add an image directly into your page position. That's fine. It will automatically add it into your image repository for you at the same time. The next area I'd like to go into is, I might just go into the news and e-newsletter area, Joe. So the tile down here. So across top right is an area where you can manage news articles. So again, this is a central repository. So articles, the reason that this is a central area again is because articles are available to different modules on the Sporty platform. Once you've added a news article, you might decide to include that article in an e-newsletter, for example, or you might decide that you want that article to automatically be included in a news feed or a news article position on a page. So when you go and add articles in here, you're actually able to, so we'll do that real quick. So we can give an article comes in the standard format, has a title. And then it has some text. By default, it includes the text, the article added. You don't need to keep that if you don't want it. And again, it's a editing area, so you can simply go and do whatever you like in here. The advanced options, I won't stay on too long, but there are a bunch of different advanced options in here. You can decide whether you want to exclude articles from the mobile app, for example. You can decide whether you want it to bring in captions that automatically come in with photos. And a recent one that we've added is you can schedule a publication date for an article. So you could say that you can set either a start date and or an end date, in which case the article won't appear anywhere on your website until the start date is reached. So if you wanted to embargo content or get approval on an article before it gets made live, you could set it to a future date if you wanted to.
You'll see in a few of the widgets, there's this advanced option link. Some of the button widgets, the button widget as well. So it's sort of to show you that there is a whole lot of other features here, but kind of keeping them out of the way if they're not used very often.
While we're in here, we could add an image to the article, or we could have added a video to it as well. We'll just go and add an image. Other things we could do would be to decide if this article is meant to have a particular category set against it. So we could say this is suitable for general use or for our juniors or whatever. Where do those categories come from? Up in the top there in the middle, you can go and create your own categories. So whatever category is relevant to you, again, you don't need to do this. So this one belongs to the rock shop. But whatever's relevant to you. And more recent addition is the concept of tags. So as well as being able to categorize articles, so the main difference is that categories for an article is something that's visible simply to you. Tags, you're able to actually display the tags for articles publicly and let people filter and search based on tag. So again, as a central repository, so here's a bunch of articles. We'll try and keep it reasonably simple. Now we'll head off and just show you where those articles now might appear. So
another new feature is the ability to search, keyword search on a news article.
Yeah, often you might have, maybe you've done an article a year ago to talk about your prize giving or something, and you want to actually reuse it. You could go off and find that old article to save you having to scroll down through potentially hundreds of other articles to try and find it. I'll just go back to the website for a moment, just to show probably the most common use of where those news articles come out. So the two main areas have been newsletters and news. So within your site at the moment, if we just maybe view the way that appears to the public. So Joe's just showing these three sort of news cards that are appearing here. So these have come through automatically from the news articles that get added at the back end. So we show the edit mode for this. So these three are simply one widget. If we look at the widget, so we're going into the widget settings just to show you what the widget is. So this is called our newsfeed widget. So if you went and added to add content, we'll find one of the widgets is called the newsfeed widget. In this case, it's been set to display the articles in a grid layout, where it is simply so within 3 columns and 1 row high. So if we were to change that, Joe's changing that to be 4 columns of news, we can see now it's brought in these 4 cards of news. Right, so again, there's a whole bunch of other settings in here as well. So if we look at the layout, so there's different formats for it. Obviously with the way that a mobile phone displays news compared to a desktop website or a computer monitor is quite different. So you might just decide whether you want one to be more condensed, etc. And again, you can have an experiment with these different settings, and there are examples in the support. By clicking on display, you can decide, it's now become a whole bunch of settings where you can really customize the way your news appears if you want. Again, right down to drop shadows and square corners and so forth. I won't attempt to go through each one of those, but
I have a look into just our help, our support articles has a lot in relation to news and the different news categories, different ways that you can display news and various other more advanced things in here. So explore these support articles. Cool.
So we'll go back to the dashboard, and I think we're going to shoot through to the
settings.
Yep. Admin settings, and then we'll look at newsletter and that. So on the admin settings, again, real fast, this is really well covered in our online support. So the basic information here is around the organisation itself. This is the area that you would set your organisation logo as well in terms of default logo. There are a few other basic settings in here. If it's already set up for you, you probably won't need to change it, but you can make this relevant for you. If we go, probably the area you're likely to use most in here is the login and access control area. So in login access control, you can come in here and see who else has access to your site, and also what are the roles they have or the things they can do within your site. So to invite a new user, we click invite new user, and all you need to know is their email address and name. And then you can decide what you're actually giving them access to. So in terms of granularity here, there are three main tabs. Joe's on the website tab at the moment. Okay, on the database, back to the website tab, you can decide whether you want to give them full control as a webmaster, which is basically the Worksburger, let them edit everything, or you could just restrict their access purely to an individual sub-site where those exist. If we click through onto the databases tab, again, if you're using the, again, you could let someone be a database admin, so they've got access to any of your databases that come with your site, or you could say, no, this person really needs access to one particular database or whatever. On the other is where, for those in terms of adding Super CRM administrator, most people on this call won't be comp management or ref appointments administrators, but this is the place that you would manage those roles as well. When you're happy that you've given them the right level of access, you would, so Joe's just finishing this for Preston, you simply click invite, send invite, and the system will automatically send them a link that they can click on to finish the process to get that access. You'll see that they would then appear down on the down as a user on the access side of things. To remove someone, you simply click the trash can icon across on the right. So that'll remove the user's permissions. In terms of levels, most people tend to be equal levels in here, in which case there is no concept of an overarching super user. If you're 5 of you on a committee, you're all equal, and you fall out, then whoever gets here first and clicks delete wins.
So in relation,
that was humour. Don't do that.
In relation to logins, as we strongly recommend not to share logins, because if you do share logins and you're both logged in, you could overwrite each other and either delete or overwrite some information about something, so you can invite more administrators. There are some areas that are restricted as to how many administrators you can invite, but for the website and the database side of things, there is no limit to those two areas.
Yeah, where that's especially relevant is that we've introduced an increasing amount of audit logins, so that you're able to, if you went in and said, hey, who did what, you'll be able to see that in many instances now, especially in relation to the Super CRM database management, which we'll be covering in the next session. I'm going to go jump into the e-newsletter side real quick.
Yep, we'll come back to the connections in the next session.
So we've gone back to the dashboard into the create e-newsletter tile button. So in here, if you haven't already started using this, there will be a couple of things I'll just point out to you. Up the very top shows the number of emails that have been sent from here. So within this demo site, very few. So that there are some now what we call fair use limits that have been set against e-newsletters. It means basically for free, you're able to send up to 10,000 newsletters per month or within a 30-day period, and 2,000 in a send. You can get those limits increased if you need them to be increased, but that would be something that you would need to come through our support. It's a subscription service to go higher than the free limits or the fair use limits. In terms of how to use this service, you could start from scratch by building a blank e-newsletter, in which case it's going to look like this, and you're going to be able to simply go add content, very similar to building website content. We can just show this real quick, Joe, and we won't necessarily save it. But again, Joe's just gone and added some text, so you can go and put text in and edit text. We can click add content, put in an image, in which case it's going to bring in that same image gallery that we're used to. We could add news articles. So maybe a grid view. Oh yeah, that's fine, whatever. Right, so those news articles, and this is again relevant. So where do they come from? They came from that news repository where we created the articles earlier. In these settings, we could have set this to only display news articles for a particular category. So we could say we only want to bring in articles that are tagged as or with a general category, or that have a junior category, for example. This is relevant because generally you won't be building a newsletter from scratch every time. You're probably going to set one up as a template, and you might just have a template newsletter for your juniors, a template newsletter for seniors, or for some other purpose, committee members, sponsors, funding partners, whatever. In which case, if you're using your categories on your articles, you will simply come in here and you'll find that it automatically has updated with whatever are the latest news with those articles for you. So it just makes it very easy to build an e-newsletter. Joe, we might just go.
Some advanced options is you can set the background colour of your newsletter that appears as well. So it's a new feature if you want to use that.
Cool. We're going to exit without saving this one. We'll just go to one that Joe prepared earlier. Okay, so again, reasonable example. So you decide what is the subject of your newsletter up at the very top. In this case, Joe's called it on the Ball Club newsletter. Who's it coming from? And then down into the actual content. So the way this has been constructed up at the very top, Joe's just uploaded an image. She's then got some text through the text widget. She's got a button which says registrations are open. So that was another of the content types. And then she's put in a news content where she's set it to be formatted as grid view, and she's put in like a sponsor logo or whatever at the bottom. At any point you can have a look, click the preview button to see what it looks like. So this is what people are going to receive into their inbox. The easiest way, of course, with this is just to create one, save it and send it just to yourself. And that way you'll be comfortable. So it's prompting Jo as we progress through. It's just prompting her to save the e-newsletter to a folder, and then you can decide where it's going to go to. So you could, just before we click on from here, Jo, we're using a custom list in here, so we've just got a couple of emails. You could copy a column from Excel and paste it straight in here. Up the top, it also lets you choose your website admins if you wanted. So those are the people that we looked in that user access control area before. We could send it to people that have signed up to your forms and databases or have subscribed to the notices widget. So we will have a look at the forms and databases area in the next section. When you're happy as to where it's going to, you click review and send. It's telling us at the moment we've only selected for it to go to 2 people in our custom list. Click send, and it's going to be queued for sending. So questions we're often asked around this is around spam compliance and the rest of it. Any newsletters sent out through Sporty are anti-spam compliant in terms of they include an opt-out link, in which case the person would get added to your exclusion list, accessible through that orange button at the top right if they did opt out of your newsletter. Other key things, Sporty is a whitelisted bulk email sender. All e-newsletters are DKIM signed. It just means that they almost never go to someone's spam folder. So, but with that comes responsibility. So we do ask, please make sure if you are using email addresses that you've gathered that you do have a right to send to those people. Otherwise, you ultimately impact your reputation score. Jump back out of there. Yep, we'll have a super quick look at the mobile app. So every organisation, so every sports organisation and school in New Zealand actually has a free mobile app using the Sporty app service. So the free version is discoverable through on Google Play and through the App Store if you search for Sporty NZ. So the Sporty NZ app, you're able to download it or ask your members or community to download Sporty NZ app, and then they would set it to your organisation. So if they go and find it, they only need to do that once. When they do it, it will automatically bring in your logo, your colours, and it will then use the app settings for your organisation. So I'd let, if you're interested in having a free app that you can then communicate with, it does things like automatically brings in your news. You can link it so it's got an icon going to your Facebook and other bits and pieces through to your registrations. Probably a key part of it is that you're able to send push notifications to just the people with your app. So one of the things, again, I won't, we're out of time on the session, so I have to push you to the support to have a look at how to send push notifications. Guys, I know this has been super quick. We've now we've reached time for this first hour. Again, just as a reminder, I would point you so that the key things we've covered is the basis of managing content on your website, some of the new features around styling, design, defaults, etc., and those core concepts. We've also shown you the document repository and where you can store document and media files, where your images are, how to manage news articles, including categorization, how to display those news articles on your pages, and send an e-newsletter. The next section, we're going to take about a 1 or 2 minute break, and then we're going to get into the next session. It's a reminder of what that is about. That's about web forms, including if your sport uses Sporty, so New Zealand Rugby, Netball NZ, New Zealand Football, New Zealand Rugby League, Touch NZ, Softball NZ, etc., Baseball NZ, all use Sporty as the national registration or the ability to do your registrations to the national database. We'll show you how that works. We'll show you how you can add your own question fields to the forms, how you can see the data of anyone that registers against your form, and then we'll jump into the Super CRM side of things as to how you can really maximise the member management part that's available to your organisation here as well. So we're going to pause just for about 30 seconds. Let me have a drink of water and let the people that are joining separately the second part of the session to enter this Zoom session. And delete where I'm muted.
That was just about
Cool. Shall we jump into it?
Let's jump into it.
Okay, team. Hopefully we're good to go for this second part of this evening session. So for those people that have just joined us, thanks for joining. We've got, in terms of real quick intro again, I'm Mike Purchase. We've got Tristan on my right. Tristan's you might have had contact in relation to sport. Joe Perry is known by many in terms of on the client services side, and partly in shot, partly out of shot, we've got Troy Hardy over in the corner. And we've also got some of the rest of our team online. Common questions, yes, we will be, or we are recording this session. We will try and tidy it up and make it available to you later by link. The other thing is, for anyone that's just joined, you are muted by default, and apologies that we're unable to have this as a general chat. We just have too many people online to be able to do that. What we'll do is we will show you where you can get direct support if you do want support. Tristan's beavering away answering a couple of questions coming through on chat, but otherwise for more specific things, if it's items or issues relating to your organisation specifically, if I can get you to hold that into a direct dialogue with us later through our support. So again, reminder of this session, so what we're about to cover now, we're going to jump into the online registrations or form side of things. We're going to show you how you can add your own question fields to a form, show you where the official forms reside if you're part of a sport that's using official forms. We're going to show you where those databases appear for the forms. We're going to go through, we'll talk about online payments. We'll refer to Xero connection. We'll also have a quick look at the member management side of things through Sporty Super CRM and communicating out to your membership. So the very first thing, I'm actually going to go probably back to the Sporty homepage, Joe, just to, if we can, super quick. So for anyone that's just joined us, just a reminder as well that everything we're covering this evening is covered through the link top right, Joe, the support link. So they pay donor support, you can go through online support, and everything that we're covering there will be available in here. Right through our support area. The other thing I'll just point out really quickly is that for those that have just joined us over this a few months ago, the pricing model for Sporty for our premium services changed. So we are now making available for clubs, the member management component module is free, as a starting point of free for clubs, and depending on whether you want more, which we would certainly encourage you to do if you can afford it, is now based on membership numbers in terms of pricing. So we're going to be getting right into this member management side of things. I'm going to be concentrating largely on what's available for free, but we may be touching briefly on some of the premium services as well. So again, going back to maybe Joe, I see you're already in a logged in state on that for Sporty. I'm just going to log out super quick just to remind people of how we got here. So anyone that's only come in the second session, hopefully you're already aware of this. So every organisation has a place on Sporty. You can go directly to your place when you know its URL or its address. And if you have your own website, you can connect your own domain name, so your own web address, to be here instead of your Sporty URL. Okay, so again, look that up through our support if that's of interest to you. Key thing, the reason to bring you back here is this is the online login area. So by clicking online login, admin login, which is bottom of the page, if you don't have a username and password, you can actually register through this down the bottom here as well. Alternatively, you can contact support and we will help get you started if you're unable to find someone else in your organisation that already has a login. Everyone who has a login today is able to add other logins or give you a login if you don't already have one. By default, it will show you your website in this edit mode. We've just come from the website editing session, so we're not going to do that again right now. We're going to go straight to the dashboard. So the dashboard area presents you with a bunch of tiles where you can do different functions on the Sporty platform. We're going to start off in this online registrations tile in the centre. Clicking through here shows us a bunch of folders that contain forms or databases effectively. We're going to use probably 21 netball, I think, Joe, as an example. So we've just come into this folder here and there is simply one form visible in here. So if your sport is one of those sports that has the user Sporty with an official form, so again, like some New Zealand Rugby, New Zealand Football, New Zealand Netball, Softball NZ, NZRL, Touch NZ, Baseball NZ, etc., you would be able to come in and you should already be able to see your official registration form for your members should be visible to you in here. If it's not and you think it should be, then please contact support@sportsground.com and we'll ensure that that is mapped and shown for you. In here, you are also able to build your own web input forms. Okay, so there's a really powerful form builder in here. I'm just looking at in terms of timing. Do you want to show the form builder?
I can touch on it quickly.
Might just look at this super quick, only because it's such a powerful feature. So every organisation, Joe's just showing it, she's gone through to the online support area.
Just because there is an enormous amount of a number of different, lots of different types of settings that you can have on your form, lots of advanced options, different question types, how to add questions, and so there's lots of different
really comprehensive support on this.
But we
So-
can touch it quickly.
So I guess the key elements with a form, what are we doing? We're creating a web input form that lets you decide what are the question fields that are going to appear on a form that becomes visible to people that either visit your website or somehow get a link to your form. I'll probably just gloss down here because then we'll jump onto a form that's already been prepared. But the key bits are you have an area that you can decide what questions you want to add. So, and this has changed a little bit over the last year, so I'm just going to sit here for a moment. And the first thing we're doing is we're setting, is this question field a system field? If we're wondering what a system field is, I'll just show you that really quickly. So by clicking on a system field, these are fields that are already created, so you don't need to think about how they need to be set up or how they appear. So for example, if we chose the address field and simply went and added that to our form, the way that would appear is with the title address, we could change it, but because the system knows it's a system field, it does some smart things. So when it displays this form to the public, means that if they start typing their address, it will automatically complete the address for them, including their postcode, etc. So it lets them select their address through that auto-complete process. So it just speeds it up and it makes sure you get accurate spelling, accurate punctuation, all the rest of it for your address, and where it's split into the correct address fields. There are a whole bunch, as we saw, adding a question, again, system fields. There are a whole heap of these. So gender field, for example. With the gender field, another thing that's now included is you can decide rather than just male, female, do you want to include a non-binary option as well? Over on the right where Joe's mouse is, we can also see we can set individual questions to be mandatory. It's by clicking the required tick box. These questions, incidentally, we can move them around, so we could literally drag this into any order that's relevant for us, including now and right through the entire form. The admin only tick box on the very right, if we had set that, it means that that question field would not be visible to the public. It will be visible to us, those administrators, and so we could still go off and complete a field. So it could be our own, could be notes, for example, where we want to have notes against a record for an individual, but we don't want them to be public. The second part, if we go add question again, this different type of field is a custom field. So we were just looking at system fields. Custom fields are a little bit different. This is where we simply choose the type of field that we're expecting. So Joe's giving an example here where she's saying it's a single choice. So we're wanting people to choose from one of a number of options. So she's given a question, she's called it school year, and she's gone in and put a few different options in here. Made it required if she wanted. We could go and add another question. So key thing here, this is like a bottomless cup. So you can add as many questions as you want. She's added one now where she's expecting a yes/no answer. So she's saying, will you donate? And where the expected answer is yes/no. By dictating the answer type, like a single choice or yes/no, means of course that the data, when someone goes and completes your form, that data now is nicely normalized. If it was simply free text and we didn't give them the options of yes, no, then people would, if they were typing in an answer, they may type yes or no, or they might type no, or not in a million years, or yes willingly, or whatever, which is lovely, but not very easy for you to then sort on and do other things with later. So using the field, the normalized answer types like this, just gives you data that's very easy to compare with. Another one here is a system field that's relevant at the moment is we've added support for the vaccine pass field. If you were to add the vaccine pass field, what that presents on the web form is a button. You can decide over on the right what the settings are for this, whether it is mandatory, in which case you click it as required. The general rule with vaccine passes is that they are only required for people that are 12 years and 3 months and over. And another thing that's available to you here is to require a person match. So what that means is that when someone goes and registers and they fill out their name, Joe Boggs, and their date of birth or whatever on your form, Sorry, go just back down to those settings. If you've set require person match, we won't save this one, but if you had set require person match, then it means that the details of the vaccine pass that they're using, the surname and the date of birth must match the name on the registration record, otherwise it won't accept the vaccine pass as being valid against that person.
We do have a comprehensive support article that explains everything to do with vaccine passes, adding them to questions to the form, and then how people can upload their vaccine pass.
Either so the system lets them either scan it directly from your form, or upload it from the photo library, or upload the PDF that the Ministry of Health sent them. Okay, so again, we won't dwell on this too long because I don't want vaccine passes to overtake the session.
Yep.
So we came in here to show you the basis of putting together a form.
Just quickly, there's an introductory text area at the top that you can write whatever you like in here, including links to various things, and equally a terms and conditions section at the bottom of the form you can add as well.
If you did add terms and conditions, like I agree to abide by the code of conduct, for example, as soon as you put text in here, it introduces a tick box that people must tick to show that they are accepting your terms and conditions when they submit or when they complete your form. Really sorry Joe, just before that, I'm just going to look at the products area at the bottom super quick. We're not going to dwell on this at the moment, but other than to show you that you can also add products to your form, and there are some more advanced settings in here. Again, really comprehensive coverage in the online support, but you can do things like set up to accept online payments. We've extended support recently for Poly and Stripe, as well as Debit Success. Each of these different payment methods has different advantages and disadvantages. Poly you may have used if you've ever paid your NZTA for your car registration or whatever using, or paid for Air New Zealand. Poly is quite common. Probably the major benefit of Poly is that it is an insanely low rate. So it is, the Poly fees are only 1% transaction fees that you get charged for using the online payment service, plus GST. They also have a maximum of $1. So even on a $300 transaction, or make it easier for my maths, on a $200 transaction means that you've only got a $1 fee. So it's actually 0.5% effectively on that transaction. Stripe is useful for credit cards but not necessarily for low value transactions.
A lot of information through here. The different connections, the different options explained in here.
Cool. So if you don't yet have online payments enabled, or if you only have them enabled for one option, please come and have a look through the online support of what the options are. If you are using Xero also does have their own Stripe integrated payments as well. So you might decide purely to use that rather than payments through Sporty. We're not precious about it. You can choose whatever is the best method for your organisation based on your transaction size and frequency or volume. Joe, anything else that we want to put in here? So if you were connected to Xero, you would be able to automatically select the accounts that, so when you add products, you can set up defaults as to which of your chart of accounts codes or your tax types through Xero, etc. So for those of you that are treasurers, this will be, you will welcome this. Those of you that are not, your eyes will have already glazed over, so we will move on. We'll cancel out of here and go into probably that netball example, 2021. So we're just going to go into, so one form, when a form is created, if one form equals a database. So whenever there's a web form, when people go off and enter their details, submit their details into your web input form, where does it go? It goes into a database associated with that form. So whenever we talk about a database or a form, we're effectively saying the same thing. Every form also does have its own unique URL. So we could go, I'll just probably Joe show editing this form first. So there's a modify the form fields button. If we click on that, this will just show us the fields on this particular form. So this is a netball registration form. We could go and add our introductory text, and we can see this form's got a whole bunch of different fields already set up. This is the official form that comes through from Netball NZ. So the reason these are greyed out and we can't change them is these are the data fields that are required either by Netball NZ or your zone or centre. And each of the different sports codes has their own unique data set that is required as part of their national registration side of things. Generally that becomes a subset of what a club needs or a school needs, and for that to create this, customize the official form and make it your own, you're able to go and add your own questions to the official form. Adding questions in here is, keep on going Joe, that's cool. So Joe, as a for example, is just adding a question relevant for this example club or whatever organisation this is. What's your preferred playing position? In which case you could add some different positions, right? The questions, when you go and add your own question fields to the official form, the answers are only visible to you in your own database. So these are not shared upwards. So just because this is on the official form does not mean that this data gets shared anywhere else. So it's unique and visible only to you and your organisation. The ones that are greyed out that come down from the official form, all of these fields are visible to both you and your governing body. Okay, so in terms of using the official form. In real life, the reason for doing it this way, we used to find that often clubs would be using the official form just for their kind of official compliance with the national database requirements, and then they'd go off and have their own club member management system, and that introduced a load of duplication where they're effectively getting people to complete both the official form as well as a club management, for their member management purposes, so a membership form. By bringing these together, it means it meets the club's needs by you having your own fields, your own products, your own payments that are all unique just to you. But at the same time, it is updating the national database or the governing body database as part of that single instance of registration. So Joe's actually gone and modified this, and we may as well save that. And probably
it's closed. So.
Right. Okay. So yeah. So Joe, in terms of doing this, we were looking at our 2021 form. Joe, we'll use the link for this just to show it anyway, or will it show us closed? Okay. So sorry Joe, I wanted to click into that form just to show that there were people registered from 2021. So by clicking on the name of the form, we can see a database of people that were registered. Right? If we clicked on any one of these records, we can drill down into that person's registration record, and we can see what they were submitted in 2021. So here are the details that were submitted. We'll just exit out of there or back out of there. From in here as well, you can do a couple of other things. You could export your registrations, excuse me, in which case down the bottom left it's opened in Excel, so we can see the people. This would be the world's smallest club. So for the purpose of the example, you can see that you can export those. We can do a few other things in here as well. We could roll a person forward. We could record payments against them. We could record notes against them and do a bunch of other things. Not especially relevant because this is last year's database. This is 2021. For us now that we're in 2022, if we go into our 2022 folder, again under the Sport of Netball, so the form name we were dealing with in 21 was called Netball Registration, so that's why Joe's choosing the Netball Registration 22 form. Yep, so Joe, we're going to want to modify. So maybe if we add a quick question to this one, because the one we were looking at before was 2021, we want to use 22 for the example. So Joe's just adding a yes/no question. She's making that required. Ignore the typo. She's saving the form. The form itself, out to the right of the form, we can see a little link icon. So every one of these forms has its own unique URL or its own unique link. So Joe's just going to copy the link, and she's going to just show you the way that works by pasting it into a browser. Right, so this is a link directly to that form. Right, so because your form is unique to you, you could actually, so where Joe's just pointing out, sorry, Joe, correct. So Joe's just pointing out the field that she added with that typo, will you help our club? Right, so anyone completing this form, she said that is mandatory, would also need to complete that field. The other thing in relation to the fact that it's got its unique URL or its own address means that you could, of course, send someone a link to your web form. It doesn't need to be on your website. You could actually send this out by just posting it to Facebook. You could send it in an email. You could send it to someone by text message, or you could send it in a tweet with Twitter. Right? Any way that someone gets to your form through your URL is unique just to your organisation. They'll be seeing your unique questions and they will be registered against your organisation. Right? So to be clear, the URL is actually unique just to you, even though you might be using an official form. Yep, Joe's going to go back. So other ways you could display the form is you could put it into a page on your website as well. So for those of you that are using a Sporty website, then one of the website content areas is an online form. So on one of our pages, we can click add content. It's already here. So kill it, click add content, and one of the widgets is online form. In which case we would go off and choose the form. It was in 2022, our netball registration form. Save that. In which case now that's going to display merely on that page on our website. Right, so anyone completing that form will automatically appear in the database associated with the form. Most commonly, your members are people that are coming back from one season to the next. So I just want to show you a method here that is the magic link method for player retention. This makes life really easy. Probably the main advantage of this is that people don't need to log in to be able to renew or re-register with you, but they still get access to their own data automatically pre-filled for them. So the method for doing this is we go to our 2021, so to last year's form or database. We can see it here. So again, just to reiterate, this is last year's form. Across to the right, we click on the email icon. This brings up a pop-up box. It tells us what it's going to do. It lets us send a group email to all the people from last year. Right? So it's saying that it's going to send it out to all people that were within our netball registration database from 2021. So those are the people we saw on the screen just a moment ago. And then it's got an area where we can go and edit the content of what the email is that gets sent to them, both the subject that Joe's clicking on at the moment, right, and then content of the email itself. Okay, there's some default text in here. You can modify this however you like. Again, it says if you don't wish to re-register, then please ignore this email. So you can turn this text into something relevant. Often clubs will put in information here about their the season kickoff date, anything for rugby, it could be around weigh-in days, at netball it could be around trials, etc. All right, so whatever's relevant to you. Now the cool thing with this is that when you click send email, what it would do is it's going to send an email out to everyone from all last season's members, where it'll have this text in it. But each of those emails contains a unique, what we call a magic link. So that unique link is different. It's an encoded link that is unique for every one of your members. When they click on their own magic link, I think you probably can send that, Joe. When they click on their own magic link, it means it will open for them automatically their renewal form for 2022. So it means that anyone that gets that, sorry, Joe, we're back in the 2021.
I was just going to show how, if they click on the link to simulate it.
Right. So sorry, that we show the green roll forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
No problem.
So as people click on the link and it'll automatically show them their pre-filled form for the 2022, including whatever new question fields you've added to that form. So maybe if we do the roll forward, Joe, through the 2021 database, this will just show, so if we click for one person, we'll go roll forward. So effectively this person, in this case, Elise, would see this. So when she clicks on the magic link from her email, it'll automatically show her the data that's already known about her. She has not needed to log in, so it knows it's her, so she can't change her name, muck anything up. The fields that she's able to change would be any fields that are incomplete or any of the new fields you've added through Form Builder for 2022. Right, so if we go down, we can see there's the question that Joe added for the 2022, that will you help our club? So she set that as yes, in which case, so long as all the mandatory fields are now completed, then Elise would be able to click submit. We may as well click submit, Joe. Because Joe's in a logged in state, it's actually going to take us to the database view. Obviously, someone that was doing this themselves that are not logged in as an administrator, they will simply see a message saying thanks for registering. Joe's going to go back to 2021 just to show the way that this appears in last season's database. Sorry. We're in 2021. Yep. And click in last season's database. We can see now that Elisa's record has gone green. So that shows that the system knows she has already renewed for the new season into 2022. So this makes it really obvious. So as you're going merely sending that bulk invitation to re-register, where you're sending out that magic link to everyone, you'll see that your database from last season for 2021 will be merely turning green. In that database view, sorry, Joe, can we go back into the database view? Equally, you could send the magic link just to an individual. So if we knew, for example, that Yana was definitely coming back, but we see that she's not green, she hasn't re-registered, we could send it just to her, in which case it's telling us it's just going to send her the magic link. So in here we might say, Yana, we can see you're turning up at practice. We know, but you haven't re-registered. Please, can you get on with it? Yep, we'll cancel out of there. The magic link method for renewals, the other cool thing about it is that by default, if someone has already renewed, it's not going to send it to them again. So that means that we often see clubs, you might send this thing out 6 times approaching the cutoff date for the start of the season, right? So exclude people who have already registered. So it's quite common to see clubs do things like saying, hey guys, there's only 5 weeks to go. If you're getting this, we don't think you've registered, please renew. Right, so for player retention, you're probably, it's the old 80-20 rule, probably about 80% of your people are returning, 20% are new. This makes it super quick, one-click simple for those returning people. If you had added on your 2022 form products, letting people pay online or whatever, then of course they can complete that as part of the same process. So hopefully that makes sense. If we go to our 2022 form and have a look in that database now, we will see that those records, so Lisa's record is already in here, and as our other members from 21 click their magic link and renew, they'll automatically be visible into this 2022 view. Of course, I could drill down into any of those records to see the details, and again, I could export them from here and do other things. So in terms of the web input forms and the ability to set your own question fields is really powerful, and of course it is also for those sports codes that now rely on Sporty for the national registrations. This is an important part of ensuring that your players are efficiently registered with your national body. If we go through now to the database, sorry Joe, I'll go back to the dashboard. I'm now going to jump into the Super CRM area, I think, Joe. So we click through into here, different tile. If you're not yet turned on for Super CRM, it's something that I definitely suggest that you should be. Yep. So in Super CRM, this is whereas the individual database views we showed a moment ago relate just to the people that have actually submitted a form for that individual database. Super CRM, on the other hand, gives you a view of everyone that has ever completed any form with your organisation. Right, so we're showing a much larger data set in here. So as organisations grow over time, you will have thousands of records in here. The way these are displayed, and this is normal for CRM, so CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management System, and it's just a member management solution. Sporty Super CRM is a little bit unique, but it was designed for sport, so it understands concepts like seasons and grades and teams, etc. But otherwise it's similar to any other member management system. So from this main grid view, the first thing I'd say is you can decide whatever fields you want to appear in this person grid. Right, so up the top right, there is a settings cog. We can click on that, and then we can decide what, under our display area, we can turn on and off whole columns for display. And as Joe scrolls down through here, we can see there's a whole bunch of other columns that we could turn on, like phone or ethnicity or whatever. Right, so obviously what you are doing in here is you're introducing additional columns to the grid. So you don't want there to be too many of these on here. Otherwise it can end up, cool. So Joe's added to make visible a number of columns. So if we click save, and we'll see now that this grid, the columns in this grid view have now changed. Right, so we've introduced a whole bunch of extra columns. We're still looking at 388 results, which is across all data or all records for this example organisation. That's probably not going to be very useful to us. Most commonly, you're going to want to have a subset of that. So what we're going to do is simply go and filter our database into, for example, so whichever one you want, Joe.
Right, to filter on that netball database.
All right, so Joe's going to go and choose. I think they probably don't have photos against them, so it's not going to be especially colourful, but we can go and do that. Joe's choosing, what she's doing in here is she's picking on 2021, and she's going to go down and find her netball registrations 2021. So she's saying, I'm going to filter just on that form. There are a whole bunch of, just before we click out of here, Joe, there's a whole bunch of other things you could filter on. You could filter on their date of birth, you could filter on the date they registered, you could filter on their role. So there's a whole heap of things that you could filter on. Importantly, with any of these filters, you can actually save the filter as well. So by default, so Joe's just calling this 2021 netball. And so she's going to go and apply that filter. And now it's going to reduce her data set just to those records we saw before. So here's Elise, right, there's Yana, etc. Right, so it happens that there weren't photos uploaded against those particular records. But there's, right, so what we've done, again, mentally, if you just think about this for a moment, the fact that you can create your own web input forms as well. So you could have a web input form that is just, could be for live members, or it could be for non-playing members, or it could be for any purpose. Holiday programs. So any form that you create, whenever someone registers or submits a record against that form, that registration record will appear back into your Super CRM view. Importantly, it will also person match. So it will appear into, you're not going to end up with multiple records in here. So as long as you have enough fields for the system to person match on, which is generally a minimum of first name, last name, email address, I think, all for this. Date of birth ideally, then it will end up matching. So if we were to drill into one of these records, just click on Elise's record. If Elise had registered for a holiday program or signed up for a holiday program, for example, it would do a couple of things. It would be visible on her registrations tab. So at the moment, so we can see that Elise is registered at the moment, both in 2021 and 2022, and also in her timeline view. So if I click on her timeline tab, again, so this relates just to a lease. And what this is doing is it's building up a history of just between our organisation and a lease. Joe, just sorry, while we're on that timeline tab. Importantly, in Super CRM, this is also, remember that everyone who has ever had any involvement with your organisation in any capacity, could be sponsors, could be funding partners, this is visible and private just to your own organisation. You can actually go and log an activity in here as well. So there's that green button that Joe's about to click on the left. You could add a note against a lease's record, for example. Lease injured or lease whatever. Click save and it appears on the timeline with that as a note. You could put in a phone call. If you had done a bulk email out to, which we haven't done to a lease at the moment, but if there had been an email go out to a lease, it would appear on her timeline here. Even if you sent an e-newsletter out through the system and a lease was in the recipient group, it will merely add it to a timeline. So over time, you will see all interactions with a lease through all of her registrations, holiday program sign-ups, any comms, any notes, etc. Again, visible just to you, so that when I say just to you, just to your organisation and any of the people that you have given your Super CRM login access to. So this becomes your central source of, I guess, golden copy or a single source of truth in relation to a lease. If we go back to that, we just go back out to the grid view of all people. So this is, we filtered down to the subset. Having filtered to a particular group, generally then the things you're most commonly going to want to do with them, probably you're going to want to contact them in some way. We could click this contact button, in which case it gives us a few different options as to what we're going to do with these 13 people that we've filtered down to. We could send them an email, so I'll click on that real quick, right, in which case we can send a bulk email out just to these people. Now, obviously the advantage of doing this through Super CRM means that instead of you trying to send out a group email from your own Outlook or your own email application, which if you were sending to 300 people or club members or whatever, is likely to get caught up as spam, or where you're trying to do a BCC or doing something to try and avoid showing everyone, each other's email addresses, which is obviously something you definitely shouldn't do. By doing it through here, it means it is directly from you to each individual. They only see their own email address. It gets added to their timeline automatically as well. And it keeps a record of what was sent to them so that anyone else that's involved with your organisation as an administrator can see that contact over time. All right, so I think we won't send this one out, Joe, but if you were to send, then it would merely send it from here. We'll cancel out of there. Other things you could do with contact, clicking that contact button again, there are a few other things. We could send an e-newsletter. I'll just click on that one first. This is really common. So in the last workshop session, we showed you how easy it is to create a Club e-newsletter. That same Club e-newsletter is automatically visible through the CRM. Since we've filtered our database down to just these 13 people, that means that this newsletter is just going to go to these 13 people. Right, so again, we could preview it. So this shows us what's going to go into their inbox. Right, and then down the bottom of this, it lets us save and continue. And it's telling us who it's going to go out to. So up the top, we can see that it says this e-newsletter will be sent to 13 people from the CRM. You could also add people from a custom list. You could CC yourself to copy it to yourself, etc., all through Super CRM. Okay. If we within this list as well, I'm not sure if we've got many regional sports organisations that are attending. But if you did, for example, have up the very top, we also, same as we've got a person grid, we also have an organisations tab. So it could be that you've got sponsors in here, could be funding partners. If you are a governing body, a regional sports organisation or whatever, you will see all of your affiliated clubs and schools appear in here automatically. So you would be able to use Super CRM to contact the administrators, committee members, etc. at your clubs and schools as well through this method. I'll just go back to that person grid. Yep, Joe's pointed out the search up in the top right. We could search, and maybe won't do it because I'm just going to show the rest of the contacts at the moment. But you could search explicitly, but for someone based on their email address or their name. Equally on that contact, so remember we've filtered down to 13 people. We could send them an invitation to register, so which would achieve the same as from that database view where we're sending those people a magic link back to that same database. So we're saying we're sending them from a link to a particular form. So we want to send them out to their 2022 netball registration form. There's a, for example, we don't need to do it, Joe, and cancel out of there and go back to contact. We could also, the invitation to register, you could, for example, if you had people that had attended a holiday program, you could send them a link to a next holiday program. Or if you wanted to send, you want to invite people to a coaching clinic, you could, for example, filter based on the role of coach. So you get all of just your coaches, and you could send them a link to information on a coaching clinic, for example. Next one down is send a link to update their details. So this is if you've got people from an existing, season or existing form, and you just want to make sure it's up to date. This lets them get a magic link back to update their existing record.
This has been quite relevant this season where a number of people have already registered, and then the vaccine pass question has been added to their organisation's form. So they need to send people a link to update their details and upload their vaccine pass. And they would do that through here. And the final one is good old fashioned snail mail. So if you were to choose that, it creates a Word template. It lets you actually do a mail merge back in with Microsoft Word to allow you to print out a snail mail to literally stuff envelopes, lick some stamps and get it out there. Yep. So probably the last couple of things in here, we could export from here as well. So whatever filtered data set you could export. We also, so Joe's just clicked on that, it's dumping it out to Excel. You can see down the bottom left. Other things we could do, we could apply a tag. So we could filter on a particular data set, and then we could tag these people. So we could tag them as being, for our prems, or tag them as being coaches or volunteers or committee members or some other thing that we then, just to make it easier to filter on in the future. There's also up the top right, there's a metrics link. If we click on the metrics link, it gives us just a quick visual overview of the people part of our organisation. Again, we could filter on this as well. So we could say we want to see just our 2022 members, etc., by using the metrics filters link up in the top. And this is also, we've introduced made this printable so that, just let Joe finish this. This is going to be a very small metrics view. 13 people on one team, and there's a print icon. So for board reports, etc., you could print that or save it as a PDF or whatever. If we're within Super CRM, again, there's really comprehensive online guides around this now. The key core concepts are this person grid, filtering on and saving whatever filters you like that are relevant to you to get whatever data subset is relevant to you, and then contact them however you like or interact with them however you like. Okay, through that person tab, you also get to see their financial history, so you can actually see the balance they owe your club, etc. Yeah, there won't be a useful value in there. Probably while we're there though, Joe, I'll just point out on the very right now, we've introduced this audit tab. So over time, you will be able to also see an audit history by who changed what. So as someone, that could be someone registering themselves, or by you as an administrator changing something or doing something to their record. Okay. We're now just going to jump into the team builder side of things really quickly. So going through and back to the dashboard, another tile from here is team builder. It's this one on the left. If we click into that,
Joe, we'll actually go into the 2021 netball form. So what this does is for any sports codes that are using official forms for team sports, you will find that there is a place in Team Builder, and where the grade set that you see in here will be relevant to your local governing body. So whoever is managing your team comp. So for the rugby, if you're with rugby, you should see your own rugby union's grades in here. If you're affiliated with a netball centre, you should see your netball centre's grades in here. Same with rugby league, etc., and softball into your local association, etc. Right. So on the concept here is really simple. The data we're seeing on the left-hand side is just another view of the same data set that we've seen in these other views. Right. So to be clear, we are continuing to operate on the same records that we are seeing in all of these views. It is, so at the very top, there's Elise again. Right, so Elise is currently showing this is our 2021 database. If we wanted to add a team, so if we pretend that we add a team into our Prem A's, for example, we can give the team a name. For us, we're just calling it Prems, and we're just going to save that. It's created this little grey icon up in that area under that grade of Prem A. And we've decided that Elise belongs to that team. So from the left-hand side, we can simply go grab Elise's record, drag it and drop it into that team, right? We can continue to do that with other records, and we can see the number of people in that team is building up, right? So if we were to click on that icon, we can show, it'll actually show us now the people that are in this team. In this case, the reason it glowed as red initially is because there have been some minimum maximum roles that were set in here. So it's saying there must be a minimum of 3 players for whatever reason. Right, so these will be more sensible values for you. The key thing here is if you are responsible for a team sport and you're using Sporty for team entries, now that is almost all of rugby, all the netball, etc. You will come in and use Team Builder in this way to create your teams within those grades. Across on the right hand side, it will give you the closing dates for team entries and the closing dates for team building. So the team entry closing date is when your competition manager, whoever's organising your comp, needs to know that what teams are actually going to be submitted in what grades so that they can go about organising the comp. The team building date, the one further across on the right, the expectation is that it's probably going to be a little bit later, that you might be still organising which individual players belong to which teams. Incidentally, as Joe drags and drops, there's a few things I'll just point out. The columns on the left are sortable by clicking on the column headings. So you could click on grade, click on team, etc., click on date of birth, right, and it will organise these, the individuals into those correct order, click on gender, etc. So it lets you go and very easy way to see who's in what team and organise who's into what team. There's also an export team function up the top there as well. So by clicking export teams, it will then dump that out to Excel. So it gives you that overview. You could export your full database from here as well. The other thing I'd point out is that if we jump out of here for a moment and go to, so we were using Team Builder there for the example where we're using 2021. The better example obviously is this year, so 2022. So we jump into Team Builder for netball registrations for 2022. At the moment, we only actually have 2 players in 2022. So we could go and add a team on the right. I'll just do that super quick, Joe. So remember, the reason we're doing this again is because we're now in a different year. This is 2022. And what we can do from here is we could drag those players and say, for in 2022, Elise is back in our Prem A's. Could do that if you want. But what we can also do in here is we can click top left to our 2021 tab. We can actually see previous seasons players, right? So we can see them here from 2021, and we could actually drag someone from 2021 into a 2022 team. Now, when we do that, I think we'll find that it's going to open up. So it's going to say, do we want to roll forward the player? Because it knows that we've added an extra question form to this, an extra question to the 2022 registration form, right? So it's saying that we need to actually answer that question to roll them forward. If there were no extra questions, then it would just merely roll them forward without needing to do this. Otherwise, it will open the registration form to allow us to complete it, to complete the roll forward process. So maybe over to you, Joe.
Yeah, just to mention some of the codes, it's disabled from rolling forward.
Yeah,
So
so
it may not be for your particular sport.
yeah, worth pointing out, so within the rules or bylaws of rugby union, for example, you're only allowed to roll someone forward if you have a signed paper registration record,
And you're
which
not
is
with
unlikely.
rugby.
Yeah, rugby league, you're not allowed to roll someone forward. So there's different sports have different rules and bylaws, and that the rules imposed here should be relevant to you.
But essentially, if you're if you're a netball organisation or rugby organisation, you would be adding your teams here, and this team would automatically go through to whoever organises your competition. They would see that your team has been entered in that grade. Then as your players register, you would drag and drop them across into these teams, and they would see that those players are registered within those teams as well.
So that becomes automatically visible to the competition manager, whoever's organising your comp. To be clear, for football, because football competitions are currently organised through Comet, although we have many football clubs that use Team Builder as a convenient method to organise their players into teams, as a club, you will still need to log into Comet to do your team schedule in Comet. Right, so Team Builder does not automatically create the team for the sport of football. It does automatically create the team in the comp for most other sports that are using our comp management system.
So I think probably just one overarching thing to mention as well is how all of these different areas are connected with each other. How the online registrations area is connected with Team Builder. You can see that information coming through into Super CRM. You can see those people to communicate them through your newsletter, and how the different areas are tied into each other. So they will link.
It's a good point. So to be clear, although we have separated for convenience these different areas into these different tiles on your dashboard, and as I said earlier, some of these won't be visible to you if you're not if they're not relevant or you're not subscribing to them. The key is that it is the same single platform underneath, so it means that you don't need to do duplicate data entry across these systems. It is one platform. Probably the last thing, Joe, because the admin settings we did in the earlier session.
Yes.
So for those of you that only joined in the second session through the admin settings tile, a couple of things. In here, there's a connections tab or button. This is an area where you go to enable yourself for online payments. There's also a second tab. It's a bit hard to see on this layout, but it's accounting. And clicking that, this is where you would connect to Xero if you want to integrate with Xero. But probably the thing that you're going to be doing, this tends to only happen once, whereas the thing that's more relevant is the button on the left, login and access control. So by coming into login and access control, and this is the area that you are able to delete existing users or invite new administrators for your organisation by clicking this invite new user link on the top right. This is, I realise that most people that are in the second session are already well across the first part, so I won't get into this anymore. It's well covered in the online support. So as a reminder for the online support, you can either click through from the help, or you can go through from the tile on your dashboard down the bottom right to get through to that support area. Team, we haven't covered the game day scoring because it's unique to each individual code. So for the game day scoring app, please go to your comp manager or your whoever organises your comp. We have provided support material that's unique per sports code. So if your sport is, for example, like rugby or many of the softball associations and many netball that are using the Sporty Game Day app, please go through to your centre or union or association website to find the details of scoring. Probably, and then just to round off, I would say that, again, reminder that you can get information if you've got specific information that you are looking for your own organisation that we haven't answered for you this evening. If you're unable to find it through the online support, please email support@sportsground.com. That will automatically create a ticket at our end and someone will get back to you. Right, we do have an 0900 number for non-subscribers, and we also have an 0800 free phone for anyone that is using one of our subscription services. But the starting point, please start with self-help if possible with the support.
We'll be uploading a copy of this webinar, this recorded version, on this workshop page, so you can come back and watch it at a later stage. We do have some other previous recordings of some specific, for some specific codes here as well, and actually last year's video here too.
Guys, we'll round out now. Thank you again for joining this evening. Realise that this is out of hours for everyone, and many of the people on this Zoom meeting are volunteers. You're already giving a lot of your time for sport. You know, sport wouldn't exist without you guys. Really, we salute you, and we will continue endeavouring to try and provide tools to make your life a little bit easier. Thanks very much for tuning in, and we will follow up in due course. And in the chat. Thanks, team. Cheers.
Bye.